But when you think of AGI, when you think of the possible future, like where it goes to, do you ever extrapolate? Do you ever like sit and pause and say, well, if this becomes sentient and it has the ability to make better versions of
Yeah.
itself, how long before we're literally dealing with a god?
So the way that I think about this is, it used to be that like AGI was this very binary moment. It was before and after. And I think I was totally wrong about that. And the right way to think about it is this continuum of intelligence, this smooth exponential curve, back all the way to that sort of smooth curve of technological revolution. The amount of compute power we can put into the system, the scientific ideas about how to make it more efficient and smarter, to give it the ability to do reasoning, to think about how to improve itself, that will all come. But my model for a long time, I think if you look at the world of AGI thinkers, there's sort of two, particularly around the safety issues you're talking about, there's two axes that matter. There's the what called short timelines or long timelines. To the first milestone of AGI, whatever that's going to be. Is that going to happen in a few years, a few decades, maybe even longer? Although at this point, I think most people are a few years or a few decades. And then there's takeoff speed. Once we get there, from there to that point you're talking about where it's capable of the rapid self-improvement, is that a slow or a fast process? The world that I think that we're in, and also the world that I think is the most controllable and the safest, is the short timelines and slow takeoff quadrant. And I think we're going to have, there were a lot of very smart people for a while who were like, the thing you were just talking about happens in a day or 3 days. And that doesn't seem likely to me given the shape of the technology as we understand it now. Now, even if that happens in a decade or 3 decades, it's still like the blink of an eye from a historical perspective. And there are going to be some real challenges to getting that right. And the decisions we make, the sort of safety systems and the checks that the world puts in place, how we think about global regulation or rules of the road from a safety perspective for those projects, it's super important because you can imagine many things going horribly wrong. But I feel cheerful about the progress the world is making towards taking this seriously. And, it reminds me of what I've read about the conversations that the world had right around the development of nuclear weapons.
My real concern is that once we take the step to use an actual neural interface, when there's an actual operation and they're using some sort of an implant, and then that implant becomes more sophisticated. It's not the iPhone 1, now it's the iPhone 15. And as these things get better and better, we're on the road to cyborgs. We're on the road to, like, why would you want to be a biological person? Do you really want to live in a fucking log cabin when you can be in the Matrix? I mean, it seems like we're on this path.
We're already a little bit down that path, right? Like if you take away someone's phone and they have to go function in the world today, they're at a disadvantage relative to everybody else. So that's like maybe that's like the lightest weight version of a merge we could imagine. But I think it's worth, like, if we go back to that earlier thing about the one exponential curve, I think it's worth saying we've like lifted off the x-axis already down this path in the tiniest bit. And yeah, even if you don't go all the way to like a neural interface, VR will get so good that some people just don't want to take it off that much.
Right.
And that's fine for them, as long as we can solve this question of how do we like think about what a balance of power means in a world. I think there will be many people, I'm certainly one of them, who's like, actually the human body and the human experience is pretty great. That log cabin in the woods, pretty awesome. I don't want to be there all the time. I'd love to go play the great video game. But like, I'm really happy to get to go there sometimes.
Yeah, there's still human experiences that are just like great human experience, just laughing with friends, kissing someone that you've never kissed before, that you're on a first date. Those kind of things they're real moments. It just laughs,
Yeah.
having a glass of wine with a friend and just laughing.
Not quite the same in VR.
Yeah, it's
Now,
not.
when the VR goes super far, so you can't, it's like you are
Right.
jacked in on your brain and you can't tell
Right.
what's real and what's not. And then everybody gets like super deep on the simulation hypothesis or the like Eastern religion or whatever, and I don't know what happens at that point.
You've seen that headpiece. There's a demonstration where there's someone asking someone a question. They have this headpiece on, they think the question, and then they literally Google the question and get the
Yeah.
answers through their head.
That's the kind of thing that's the kind of direction we've been exploring.
Yeah. That seems to me to be step one. That's the Pong of the eventual immersive 3D video games. Like you're going to get these first steps, and they're going to seem sort of crude and slow. I mean, it's essentially slower than just asking Siri.
I think if someone built a system where you could think words, doesn't have to be a question, it could just be your passive rambling inner monologue, but certainly could be a question, and that was being fed into GPT-5 or 6, and in your field of vision the words in response were being displayed, that would be the Pong.
Yeah.
That's that's a very valuable tool to have.
And that seems like that's inevitable.
There's hard work to get there on the neural interface side, but I believe it will happen.
Yeah. I think so too. And my concern is that the initial adopters of this will have such a massive advantage over the general population.
Well, that doesn't concern me because that's like that's just like better, that's a better computer. You're not like jacking your brain into something in a high risk thing. You know what you do when you don't want them? When you take off the glasses.
Mm-hmm.
So that feels fine.
Well, this is just the external device then.
Oh, I think we can do the kind of like read your thoughts with an external device at some point. Read your internal monologue.
Interesting. And do you think we'll be able to communicate with an external device as well, telepathically, or semi-telepathically through technology?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
I think so too.